Hello, Formula One fans, and welcome back to F1 in Focus. We are the only Formula One podcast that brings you one show a week, but also where a Hamilton fan and a Max Verstappen fan, an Englishman and a Dutchie can very much get along in the wonderful world of Formula One. My name is John, and today we'll be talking about the Japanese Grand Prix, and we'll look a little bit forward to the Qatar Grand Prix, which we'll discuss in much more detail next week. With me is the man, the myth, the legend, the man with the best hair in the business. It's none other than James Hazel.
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm quite all right, thank you. How are you doing?
Good. Other than just being very, very tired, I'm all right.
Yeah, that's because of the early wake up, ain't it?
Yeah, let's put it down to that. Somehow I switched to Japanese time over the weekend.
Yeah, I like these early mornings. 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock your time, I guess, right? Something like that?
It was 6, yeah.
I think it's pretty perfect time, at least for someone that has kids. It's like, okay,
yeah,
kids still
for
bad.
you.
I'll sit here, take a cup of coffee. You know what? Let me get a little bit of a sandwich, do something. I'll take a cookie as well because nobody can steal it from me. And I'm just going to watch some Formula One with my headset on so nobody wakes up. Actually, could get used to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I last 20 minutes was a wreck fest though because the kids were awake. But hey, that's a different story.
Yeah.
James, if you would summarize this Japanese Grand Prix, how would you summarize it in one sentence?
Back to your regularly scheduled Formula One programming, I guess, for this season. Just back to normal. We kind of figured it would be. Not the most entertaining race, I don't think. It was all right, but yeah, it was just pretty much run-of-the-mill race for 2023. So,
why did you turn back the technical directive? Why did you unnerve Red Bull?
Yeah, they were never nerfed. I don't think. I don't think anyone seriously thought that they were. There was maybe casual watchers that were hoping maybe they would, or just people that maybe don't like Red Bull or Max, hoping that they'd start suffering. But
are there people not liking Max? I've never heard of that.
But yeah, otherwise it was, yeah. I don't think that was ever going to happen, was it, from that directive?
No. Do we want to do some statements concerning the race?
Let's get into those, yeah.
All right, let's start with this one. I think Logan Sargent should get a contract for life. He brings some spectacle and it's good for the TV ratings. And we could do like a Logan Sargent bingo to see which parts of his car he loses first every week.
Yeah.
Ford crash in 5 races, I think.
Is he now topping the charts for most accidents this season?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, most damage, I should say.
You were in our predictions. You backed Sargent to be the most incident prone, and I went with Stroll, and obviously they are the two most incident prone. But I think Sargent is maybe currently winning that.
I have the list here. This isn't. Oh, I thought I had the list here. This is an old list. I'll get this. I'll get the new list very shortly. But yeah, this is the list. But this is actually prior to. This is prior to Japan. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Logan Sargent, Lance Stroll, and Sergio Perez, costing their teams over $2 million. This is part of the cost budget. More than $2 million so far. And I think Checo broke some wings. He was doing a Red Bull. He gave wings to everyone.
Yeah, he broke 2, didn't he? Yeah.
and Sargent just, I don't know what he was doing.
No.
I don't even have words.
The accident in qualifying, I can almost forgive him a little bit for that. He just tried to keep his foot in. He lost grip coming out of the final corner, and he kept his foot down. And what's his name? James Vowles for Williams said that up until that point, he was within like 100th of Albon's time. So he was setting a pretty good lap.
True.
But you need to finish the lap for it to be a good lap.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point, eh?
And he just risked it for a biscuit and, into the wall he goes.
I got
unfortunate, but
yeah.
like I say, I can almost forgive him for that because he was on for a very good lap by Williams' standards, or even by his standard, because to be that close to Albon is pretty unusual for him. So
True.
But the race incidents, especially that one with Bottas, just very disappointing for him.
Sargent $2.794 million so far before this weekend started. Stroll 2.29 and Sergio Perez 2.10. I think Checo is now second in the list.
Based on the state of Sargent's car at the end of qualifying, or the end of his qualifying, I suspect that's going to...
No one's going to beat this year anymore.
It's going to scope a substantial amount when that gets factored in. Yeah, because that car was a bit of a wreck.
That's unfortunate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well. But it's a waste. The bridge I wanted to make is, of course, Lawson. It's not going to be part of the grid next year. Unless Williams wants to take him for 1 year on loan. Should they?
I don't know about this, because Lawson would obviously he'd be good for the team, even if it's just for a year, because he's obviously a good driver and probably help them with gathering points, assuming they're in a points scoring position next year. But they know that they don't get to keep him. They're only going to be borrowing him for a year if they went down that route.
Yeah.
Do they want that? Do they want to try and find another driver that they can kind of adopt into the team as a long-term teammate for Albon and kind of nurture another young driver? So I
think Sargent's out for definitely now.
It has to be, I think.
Well, yeah. So does Stroll. But hey.
Yeah. Well, Stroll's kind of got plot armor in the fact that his dad runs the team. So.
His dad pays the bill, so I guess there's that.
Yeah, but Sargent, I mean, he's the only seat remaining that's not signed up now, isn't it?
No silly season this summer, though.
Nah, it's been disappointing. Especially, wasn't it last year? We had a crazy silly season, didn't we?
Yeah. Oh, not going to happen.
Not this year, no. I think he's probably out, but I don't know who's going to take that seat in his place. So.
Well, I think it's going to be Drugovic, or they have to take Lawson.
Yeah, I doubt they take Lawson just for the reason that it'd only be for a year and then they're surrendering him back to another team.
I think you're right.
I mean, as much as Lawson might help Williams, do Williams want to help Red Bull or AlphaTauri, depending on where he ends up? Probably not.
No, I think you're right. I think it's also safe to say Danny Rick got his contracts signed for 1.5 years before he broke his wrist, right? Or his hand.
Yeah, rumour is he actually got signed at the British GP.
Yeah, which makes also takes the pressure off now. So that's why Lawson could just safely take the wheel for a couple of... I think maybe at least one more race, just to be safe with him.
Yeah, that's the rumour, that there is no rush for him to jump back into the car because he's not fighting for his position in the team because it's already locked in. So that's a good thing, though, because he doesn't want to be rushing back from an injury like that on his wrist. It might potentially make it worse.
True. Just heal up, stay safe, Daniel. All right, we're sure. So, statement one: we should sign Logan Sargent for his life. That's definitely not going to happen.
No.
Although we need someone like a Latifi or Sargent somewhere on the line. But this year we just have 3. That's the point.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's always Perez.
Shall we talk about that elephant in the room?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. Statement number 2, James. So, like, Checo just has to go. There's not a worthy driver for Red Bull. If they apply pressure on Red Bull next year, which McLaren seems to be doing just fine, then Red Bull's in trouble if they keep him.
Yeah. And look at the jump that Aston Martin made coming into this season. If it's the curve of the development curve always eventually flattens out. The faster you go in, the harder it is to find more speed.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't expect Red Bull to be another second faster next season. I'd be surprised if they can make that sort of time up over the summer.
They don't need to, though.
Well, they don't need to, but another team could make up a second.
True.
Obviously, McLaren's made a big jump midway through this season. Aston Martin made a big jump coming into this season. Yeah, and you can never really count out Mercedes or really Ferrari. So, yeah, there's a lot of potential maybe for a bit of a shake-up into next season. I think Red Bull will stick with Perez until they know where they are with the rest of the field next season. I think if the start of the season proves that maybe it's a bit more like 2022 where Ferrari actually can steal a win, and it doesn't have to be Ferrari, it could be any other team. If they're in a position where they're not guaranteed to be winning every race and they're not guaranteed to tie up the Constructors' Championship and the Drivers' Championship with ease, I suspect Perez will get shuffled around, probably down to AlphaTauri to make space for Yuki or Daniel Ricciardo.
Probably out, though. Let's get Lawson in then.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think they'd rather get him out, but it depends on like contract clauses and stuff like that, and if they can afford to pay him out and stuff like that.
No, you can like do a Nick de Vries. You can have his contract signed, but you don't put him into a car, right?
Well,
his contract's probably a bit better sealed, but
exactly. It's going to depend very much on the contract because, I mean, normally both parties have some sort of clause in their contract. Like someone might have a clause to leave the team early if they underperform, and the team might have a clause to boot them out early if the driver underperforms. So maybe they'd be able to play that card based on this season. I don't know. I don't really know the ins and outs of the contracts. No one really does, other than the drivers and the management for the drivers and the team. So, but my guess would be, at the very least, Perez stays where he is, and if they have another season like this season, it's fine, because he can probably finish second in the championship, and if not, he can probably do enough to help them secure the Constructors' Championship with Max winning it.
Is that so, though? Currently, 623 points for Red Bull, 400 scored for Max from there. Mm-hmm. Sure, 400 is more than the next team has on its own. So yes, Max could win this on its own.
Yeah.
But Checo is not that certain he's going to finish second this year even.
Well, not at the moment, especially after a result like Japan.
33-point difference between Sergio and
Hamilton.
Lewis.
Yeah. Hamilton didn't have a great race this weekend. Mercedes just didn't seem to do very well in Japan. But yeah, I mean, if he carries on with this poor run that he's having and a bit of a slump he's in, then that P2 is at risk.
Qatar is the track.
That would be embarrassing.
Qatar is a track where you could not finish as well, right?
Yeah.
So, holding my hand, and his confidence must be shattered. Did you see, like, Red Bull, of course, got world champion now as a constructor. Did you see the face on Checo?
Yeah.
No, I'll tell you, the saddest thing I've ever seen in Formula One, honestly, isn't Lando or isn't Fernando sitting on the chair and waving at the crowd. It's Checo sitting in his 46 minutes pit stop, watching Max do his pit stop and setting the fastest lap.
Yeah.
That was the shot of the year, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, that just kind of sums the year up to some extent. I mean, to be fair, Perez hasn't. It's not like he's had loads of DNFs. This is the first time a Red Bull has DNF'd all season.
Yes.
But he's just been completely outclassed, outperformed.
He bunted off a Haas.
Yeah.
He bunted off a Williams last week, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
That's no shining star anymore.
No.
I'm sorry, and this is what I said it before. It just frustrates me then I look at when guys like Lawson not getting a chance and then like Checo being there. It's like unbelievable seeing everyone else have pretty clear fights with each other, right? All teammates sort of being on the same level, which is a different thing to take into consideration again. We'll talk about Lewis and George in a minute, I think. And we've spoken about Carlos and Charles, of course, in Monza. Sometimes it's really tough to manage that. Red Bull at least doesn't have that, right? But it's also Max doesn't have any backup on strategies. It's a good thing he can win this race alone. Like he devastated everyone.
Well, that's it. He's in a situation at the moment where he doesn't need backup. And I don't think there's going to... Well, it doesn't matter for the rest of the season. He could probably just not race. Well, he can. He can not race for the rest of the season. And he'll still win the championship because Perez would need to win everything. And he won't because Perez can't.
That's true. I actually didn't realize he can become world champion by taking 5 points in sprint race or 6 points.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll have a world champion on this Saturday.
Yeah. And there seems to be a bit of a fuss being made about that, but
he's like, okay, we just get drunk and we'll wear sunglasses on. So,
it's also this like, he's going to be the first driver to win the championship, not in a Grand Prix.
Is that true? Though?
That's like, well, that's guaranteed to happen when you start giving out points on a Saturday, and in 20 years' time, there's probably going to be quite a few championships that are being determined that way. So it's not really. I don't see why that's such a big deal, to be honest. But
it's just a different vibe getting it in a 45-minute race.
Yeah, it's. I mean, Max isn't going to care. He wins a championship either way. Red Bull isn't going to care. They win a championship either way.
Max is going 5 points still. So
yeah, it may be a little bit anticlimactic being a
fits his world championship so far.
Yeah.
I mean, Japan last year wasn't actually a big celebration either.
Oh,
right?
No, that was kind of a... Wait, we won it? What? Yeah.
You won it? No, I didn't want it. Half points. No, you didn't get full points. No. You just sit on this giant chair as if you're a king and we'll tell you that you won. Like, this is awkward. But then again, I checked. I was looking back at some things from last year and I saw the race 5 and I saw Max Verstappen standing in 5th. With Leclerc standing in first, almost 50 points ahead. It's like, that was just a year ago.
Yeah.
So things can change pretty fast, Formula One anyways, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Anything can happen between now and next season. So, yeah.
Do you think we drive sim together, right? Do you think you ever go across the line raising your middle finger towards your team because I overtook you?
Poor Gasly.
Is it poor Gasly though? So if you haven't followed it, let's just quickly explain what happened here. Gasly overtook Ocon early in the race. Well, actually asked to let him pass because I think he's had a bit of bigger fighting chance. And to be fair, Ocon did. He let him pass.
Mm-hmm.
Then in the last lap, they said to Gasly, let Ocon pass, give him the position back. They were 9th and 10th, right?
Yeah.
For the team, it doesn't matter. And he said, no. So this is an order. You have to do this. And they left him at the last moment. He left Ocon pass and then went totally nuts, like he lost the world title nuts. Like someone slapped his girlfriend nuts. He they had to blur out everything he said on the radio. Plus, he waved his middle finger around around the whole track.
Yeah.
Because he lost out of 1 point for Ocon. The thing is, Gasly says we didn't make any of these agreements. I didn't know I had to let him pass. Often it's a common thing to do, honestly. But apparently there's a lot of miscommunication in the team. And even with Otman gone, that didn't help.
Well, that's the problem. He wasn't told when he was told that Ocon was going to let him past. He wasn't told if you don't pass the car in front, you've got to let Ocon back past.
No.
But Ocon was told that. He was told, let Gasly past, and if he doesn't get past Alonso in front, he's going to give the place back to you. So Ocon lets him past because he thinks, well, it's good for the team, and if it's not, I get my position back. And Gasly goes past thinking, well, I'm just gaining position here. And to be fair, Ocon and Gasly don't have the best reputation for fighting with their teammates.
With each other either.
Especially not with each other because, they've been enemies in the past. So if I'm Gasly, I'm thinking, I'm currently the faster car. They're doing this to avoid us fighting each other and slowing each other down and potentially having a problem. So to then say to Gasly with like 1 lap remaining, yeah, you actually need to allow Ocon back past. I can completely understand why he's so annoyed about that. I don't think he at any point had the pace to catch Alonso, but he was gaining on Ocon slowly. And if Ocon's tyres deteriorated and dropped off the cliff, similar to a bunch of cars that we saw over the weekend, then Gasly's right on this tail, either being held up or they're fighting each other or just then getting past him on track anyway. So I think from Gasly's point of view, he's probably looking at it thinking, well, I was going to overtake him anyway. Yeah. So why do I now have to give the position back? Because I would have just passed him anyway. Exactly. I didn't agree to this. So that's that's a little bit why I say poor Gasly, because I think really that was a completely avoidable situation, and all they've done is annoyed certainly one of their drivers, and just continued with creating a bad atmosphere in the team.
But James, although I completely agree with everything you said, right? You can't blame this on Ocon. You can't blame this on Gasly, right? I think that's all. You stated it perfectly. But if you are Gasly and you get pulled one like this, you don't go waving around your middle finger over the track and go on live television, go nuts. You can be frustrated. You can choose to ignore it. Or you can do the old-fashioned Max Verstappen tactic in Brazil, saying, we'll talk about this afterwards. I'm not going to do it. Or I'm doing it, but we'll definitely be talking about it afterwards. And then you talk like a normal human. As you do have a certain responsibility, I think. And this is bad for the team.
Maybe.
Because if they fight for points later on in the year, or they fight like next year, they have a good car, this will escalate, and this will always be pushed back.
Oh yeah, this will not be forgotten by Gasly.
Nor by Ocon. He thought he got the finger.
Yeah, but the thing is, Gasly has always been the kind of driver that wears his heart on his sleeve, and he is very animated, and he does get emotional.
To be fair, Ocon can be very frustrating.
Yeah, so I mean, you can almost forgive Gasly for the stuff he says and the actions he did, because he's just that kind of character, and everyone knows that. So, him throwing his finger up at the pit wall, or his teammate or whoever, I don't read too much into that, and I don't think the team probably reads too much into that, because they know that he's also in the heat of the moment. He's full of adrenaline racing Formula 1 car. It's like what Vettel said when he, years ago now, like 3 or 4 years ago or something, when he was trying to stick up for
the bees.
No, I think he was sticking up for Hamilton. Or there was some press conference that someone asked Hamilton a question, and Vettel was just like, I'm going to answer this. we say things in the heat of the moment, which we immediately regret when we calm down. And he said, like, if you know, one of his examples was if you mic'd up a football player, they're not exactly talking nice about.
Or me playing FIFA.
Yeah, they're not exactly talking nicely when they're shown a yellow card and stuff like that. Or whatever it was he said exactly. So, you know.
It's good for television, eh?
Well, it is, but yeah, they all get worked up.
Can I do that little bridge? Talk about worked up?
Yeah.
Can we talk about George Lewis?
Okay, I wondered if we were going to go to Alonso.
And Alonso, let's talk about Alonso first. This was the first time Alonso says something negatively about Aston Martin.
Second time. He got annoyed in Singapore as well.
True.
And he talked about the car being garbage. Although the car it turned out the car had damage. So
true. It's a very slow car anyways on straights from the day one in this season.
Right? Yeah, but it was a fast car overall. You remember the start of the season.
Everyone else was like McLaren was very slow, right? Ferrari was slower. Mercedes was just broken bad. So I think the car actually hasn't degenerated that badly or hasn't been growing that tremendously, but all the other teams catched up. And I think that's the natural fact of the biggest team just catching up. And I think it's not necessarily Aston Martin not doing the good job and not a good job. I think they just started off really well, while some just dropped the ball completely. And I think that's a little bit of that shows a little bit of a missed perspective there.
Can I just say that I called this?
You did.
I could see this coming a mile away, and I called it.
You say they dropped off. Yeah, you say they couldn't keep up with performance. But
I said that that team has never had a history or shown an ability to keep up with the development race that goes on during the season, and that's exactly what's happened this year. But Alonso's gone from starting the season, declaring the car beautiful to drive, or whatever his wording was.
It was.
But the problem is it's still basically the same car because they haven't changed much on it. And that's why they are now a slower car. So the car's no different to drive. It's just all the other cars are a little bit better to drive. But yeah,
it's annoying though. If you drive, you can win race.
You
can win races at the start of the year, if not for Max being there. He's second 3 times.
Yeah, and he's probably looking at thinking, the start of the season, Max and Perez fairly close together.
He almost won Zandvoort. Let's not forget that. He almost won Zandvoort as well.
All he needed was one Red Bull mishap, and he wins a race this season. He didn't get it.
And then you go into Monza and they just drive past you since like you're not there. And you go into Japan and you're like, I used to take these 130R and Spoon with a lot more speed and I'm not driving. And he gets overtaken in Spoon. How many times? You kept count, I think.
A Spoon was like 3 or 4 times, yeah. And then he finally managed to get one back doing the exact same thing to them or to somebody that had been happening to him pretty much all race, and that's because, that was partly his tyres as well. I mean, he complained on the radio that he'd been pitted too early, and what did he say?
He was early though.
Thrown to the lines, I think his wording was. It was quite early, and then he had no traction. And his problem with being overtaken in Spoon was that he had no traction coming out of the hairpin leading up to Spoon.
Driving against all mediums for all the teams surpassing him, though.
Yeah,
that's also a bad strategy, and I think that was fair to call. So.
Yeah. But it's kind of classic Fernando. Like when everything's looking good, he's very happy and praising the team, and as soon as it starts to go the wrong way, he does start getting vocal on the radio. So Aston Martin need to deliver next season, or I think that team is going to end up being the new Alpine. Because Alonso, the problem is Alonso has that reputation and he brings that almost toxicity with him sometimes. That's just part of the Alonso package.
Well, once they get the Honda engine in 26, there's no way he's in the team anyway. So
he won't be in the team in 26, I don't think. No.
So we'll see about that later on.
No.
Done. Yep. Lewis Hamilton thrown out his elbows to keep George from overtaking him. We had a fight on track. We have to say, though, the first couple of laps on this were good racing. There's a lot of overtakes, a lot of fight incidents happening all over the place. Max almost could overtake him by 2 McLarens, almost like really tiny, but they also knew like, hey, it's Max, he's not going to let him go. And a very good fight or very good driving between the 2 McLarens as well. Very good drive between the both Ferraris, I think, as well. We had, but I think the most exciting fight we've seen was both of the Mercedes going head to head, and the tension that brought. Again, there's a lot to manage in that team, though. What do you think?
I think Russell is not as fast as Hamilton. That's what I think. And I think Russell, I mean, I'm a Hamilton fan here, so there's going to be an element of bias.
I'll try to stay neutral.
But you've got to look at the championship at the moment. Hamilton is fighting for second in the championship, potentially. Does that matter, really? Probably not. I don't think Mercedes care whether Hamilton finishes second or third in the championship. But they are also fighting Ferrari in the championship. And I think the problem at the start... Pardon?
Just 20-point difference still.
Oh, it's close, yeah. I think the problem at the start of the race was the lack of Toto Wolff at this race.
That was a problem for the news articles as well.
Well, maybe. Because Russell shouldn't have been attacking Hamilton. And then to come onto the radio later on and say, are we fighting each other or are we fighting everyone else? What are we doing? And questioning. Like, he made the attack on Hamilton first. And Hamilton kind of revealed his hand at that point when Russell made an overtake on him. Hamilton got back past him pretty much immediately on the main straight and then pulled about a second on him in a lap. And then within a few laps, he was like 3 or 4 seconds ahead. But then his tyres went off before Russell's.
Yeah.
And Hamilton has quite a strong reputation for managing his tyres and being good with his tyres. And even complaining about his tyres when he then goes on to set the fastest lap in days of old. So, like, they had absolutely no need to be fighting each other. Russell instigated that by making that pass on him for really no reason. And then, fortunately, for Mercedes, Russell made a call for Plan B. I'm assuming Plan B was the one-stop strategy that he moved on to.
Yeah, smart move.
And it didn't work at all. And it was never going to work. And I was getting very frustrated with the British commentary. That were like, there's one point, because on the radio, I think they're talking, Norris's team was talking to, Norris's teammate, engineer was talking to him and saying, oh, we think Russell's doing a one-stop, we're fighting with Russell, look after your tyres. I thought, how are they fighting with each other? If Norris does a stop and he comes out 5 seconds behind Russell,
it's done.
He's going to pass Russell in 2 laps because he's going to have such a pace advantage on brand new tyres. We've already seen that all race long. And the British commentary hooked onto that and just kept talking about how Russell was potentially finishing second. And where did he finish? He finished 7th. Like, that strategy was never going to work on a high degradation circuit as we had this weekend.
No, it's the hardest on the tire, right?
Yeah.
Everyone knew it's going to be a 2-stopper.
Exactly.
And nobody else tried it, I think so.
Nope.
So.
And then trying to make his usual little strategy calls. Oh, no, don't overtake me. Stay in DRS. And Lewis was catching Russell at nearly 2 seconds lap at one point. Sainz was gaining on Hamilton. That entire idea of Hamilton staying behind Russell, Russell should have just let Hamilton straight through. I mean, fortunately, Sainz didn't pass him, but he was within a second of him when they finished. Mercedes were kind of lucky this weekend, I think. This weekend could have gone drastically wrong for them.
Yeah.
And that's because they didn't have as much as mean, I know you're not a massive fan of Toto Wolff, and there are people who don't like him, but he is a good team principal, and he would have called the shots there, and he would have.
That's the thing. I don't like his stirring. Well, I really, but I really don't like the fact that what they said about Max's records and stuff.
Yeah,
and that's just. I don't even find the words for it, but I think that's not proper sportsmanship. Put like this, because if Lewis does it, it's exactly the same. They had a very good drive themselves, and I've got nothing but respect for it. But I've never heard Horner, who's a pretty good stirrer as well of the brown stuff. But it's a PG-13 show, so we're not going to mention it. But he never said it's not word a mention or for Wikipedia, stuff like that. So that's the part I hate. And I think he's really good. And you've seen that on Netflix, but to the politics, trying to change the rules and stuff, which is something I really hate, trying to change things during the season. That's my reason why I'm not a massive fan of Toto Wolff. I am, however, very much appreciative, and I can very much respect the way how he controls the team, how he deals with a star like Lewis for so many years, right? Yeah. How he sets up the teammates, how he does with the talents, how he puts the drivers who are in his pool. He's of course also an agent, right? How he puts those drivers into teams and they perform usually as well. Those things I can only say, like, he and I think Vasseur is also a great principal. We have to see how it does at Ferrari, but it used to be. But it is Toto and Horner who are like showing the world how that job has to be done, right? Mm-hmm. So I won't disrespect any of it. But just want to, I don't hate the man. Not that I don't hate anyone, by the way. But it's more that I find that a little bit pity. Let's put it like that. Yeah. But definitely, he would have called like, "Hey, this is Toto, Lewis. Just pass him, and just put your head down. We know it's a shit car." He said that before. Yeah, and just drive stuff like that. He just nips that in the butt, right?
The problem Mercedes had this weekend was basically George doing what he's done multiple times this season and last season, where he starts trying to be the strategist on the circuit, and then trying to force calls or make calls that are only good for him and not good for the team. And he's done that a bunch of times. And I don't dislike him as a driver, but he's just a young blood trying to maybe cement himself and trying to emulate Hamilton maybe in some ways. I don't know, but he's not at that level.
And he's fighting for his seat, but he's safe.
Well,
he's just buying your time for a year or two.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
you'll be the number one driver at Mercedes if you just
he will eventually
don't act up.
The problem, the other thing though is if he never beats Hamilton, but then he ends up in a situation, where he's potentially winning championships or winning races or whatever after Hamilton's left, then he's maybe kind of got that hanging over his head. To be fair, he beat him last season, but
he won a race last season as well, right?
Yeah, there's a bit of a caveat to that, but yeah, I think he just wants to beat Hamilton. This season, it's obviously not going to happen. But yeah, it
feels a little bit like he's too desperate.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to show everyone that I can do this. But everyone's like, mate, we know you can do this. Take your
he's
time.
Trying too
You'll be
hard.
fine, mate, Yeah. And, let's leave George. I want to applaud someone as well. 2 guys, actually.
Okay.
Well, 3 guys, if I'm quite honest. But first one, Lawson. We spoke about him at the start.
Yep.
Impressive, though. 3 races now in. Well done. Again, he didn't make the points. 11th, I think.
Yeah, P11, yeah.
It's very, very impressive.
It is, yeah.
So
you could look at it and say, "Oh, I only finished P11," but then all you can ever do talked about this before. He's compared to a teammate, and he beat his teammate. So,
Yeah.
He is. I think they were very close together actually by the end, weren't they? But he is, and their lap times were very, very similar. So, but that in itself is an achievement and is worth praising him about, because he hasn't done many miles in a Formula One car, especially compared to Tsunoda, who's in his 3rd season this year, I think it is.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And he's matching him in 4 races, whatever it's been. So, yeah, just that is really good. It's really, really impressive. And it's a shame that he is probably going to be sitting out next season unless Red Bull do any shuffling. And Red Bull do shuffling, so there is potential.
Second one, Oscar Piastri.
Yep.
This race has shown that he's definitely not capable yet of fighting Lando on track. His tire wear is going too hard, I think. He's missing that experience a little bit. But there's a couple of things I like. He's now out-qualifying Lando at times.
Mm-hmm.
He's not talking over the radio, saying I got a pass or anything like that. He's fighting a little bit on that moment where, like, maybe he should let him pass. But that's also, they should have given him a just team order, I think. That this order that's passed, and then it was clear. Because you don't have to take his feelings into consideration just yet, I think.
Yeah.
But still, podium, pretty fast, really stable, not making any crazy mistakes. I think it's really, really impressive. And the other one I have to mention is that Lando is on a very high level lately.
Yeah.
Extremely high. He's with the sciences there now.
Yeah. I got to admit, at the start of the season, even before we saw that McLaren had a pretty garbage car to start the season, and even when they made improvements, I don't think at the beginning of the season I would have expected Piastri to be finishing ahead of Leclerc at certain Grand Prix, which he's now managed to achieve, certainly this race. So Piastri, it's just very impressive. Wasn't this, there's some stat on this, wasn't there? It was the first rookie on the podium or rookie on the front row since Hulkenberg?
Yeah.
Something like that. Which is pretty good. I mean, obviously that depends on, any rookie could potentially do that if they're fortunate enough to end up in a good car, which Piastri has managed to achieve, because this at the start of the season didn't look like it was going to be that way, and it is now. But then you've got to make the most of what you got as well, which he's definitely doing.
Yeah.
And Norris is Norris is driving really well as well. That team just seems to be firing on all cylinders at the moment, and I hope that they can carry that through into next season. And I hope Lando wins a race soon, because he has now got the most points of any driver without winning a race. So he now needs to win a race and remove himself from that list.
I hope he wins the race.
He will do eventually. It's pretty much guaranteed at this point.
Once he
if it's not with McLaren, it might be in a few years' time if he leaves McLaren.
Yeah, when he gets into the Red Bull. And last but not least, I have to say, though, Max Verstappen, flawless. 10 plus.
Yeah.
He was motivated, wasn't he?
He was. He'd apparently said that he was going to win this race by 20 seconds, and he basically did.
19.3.
Yeah, and he had a very good qualifying. It was just like I said at the start of the race, I'll start this episode. It's just it's back to regular scheduled programming, I think, for Max. The blip has been and gone, and we're just back to regular 2023, where Max is just on another level. So,
yeah, Yeah, it was impressive though. The qualifying 7th,
Yeah, yeah.
and then
Perez didn't qualify second.
oh, that's the biggest thing, right? The change, the difference is so huge in qualifying as well, and that's why I'm finding Piastri impressive. That since he closed that gap basically with Norris lately, he's beat him or being very close, like within a tenth or something. So I'm like, yeah, that's how it should be. They might get a problem later on in the road as well, but yeah, I'm positively enjoying some of these guys going on and showing their teeth now. And if you look how close everything is, man, it's like the constructors, Red Bull, don't mention Red Bull, but everyone else is really, really close, right? 20 points difference between Ferrari and McLaren and Mercedes. McLaren gaining. The drive itself, I think I don't have a list in front of me, but there is little difference between 2 and 4, I think. I'm looking at the driver standings now. It's Max, 400, then it's Checo 223. Hamilton 190, so that's a 33-point difference. Alonso 174, then 150 for Sainz, 135 for Leclerc, 115 for Norris, 115 for Russell. That's top 7 of this 2 to 7 is pretty close. So they won't overtake each other too much, though. But there can be some shifts there, and it's all teammates fighting each other except for Alonso.
Yeah. The main ones, Leclerc and Sainz being quite close. I think because Leclerc will want to finish ahead of Sainz, and Sainz will want to finish ahead of Leclerc. I think other than that, I suspect. Well, I don't think positions will stay exactly as they are because Alonso's going to slip because he's not going to be making up the points that he was doing at the start of the season. I think Sainz and Leclerc have a potential to pass him. Norris probably too far back at this point. Russell too far back and not getting the results that Norris is potentially getting. So, because they're on the same points at the moment.
Yeah.
And after that, it's kind of no man's land. Piastri's just going to finish 9th, I think, where he is. But yeah, it is pretty close. But I don't know how much things are really going to change other than Alonso's probably going to slowly drop down and I would guess finish 6th.
Yeah, well, in Qatar probably won't perform that well, I'm afraid.
No.
No.
I think the
Mexico
one place
he could actually do well, honestly.
Maybe Interlagos probably as well. And obviously we've got Vegas this year, which the only thing we seem to know about that is that it's going to be cold.
True.
So that could potentially be another spanner in the works for any team, let alone Red Bull, because it's such an unknown, I think.
I think that's just Ferrari territory if I look at the track layout. But then again, it's going to be 4 degrees when they drive, I heard. 4 degrees Celsius, something like that.
It's going to be cold, yeah.
It's going to be really cold. And I don't think the Formula One car does well when cold. So
the average temperature is going to be cold, but who knows what it's going to be like at the time, whether there's any kind of, freak warmth or cold front could swing the temperature away from the average. It's going to be interesting with the tyres because circuit temperature is going to be very cold.
Yeah.
Probably the coldest of any circuit this year.
Ever. Maybe even.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a few races away yet, isn't it, to look forward to.
Looking into Qatar. Not this weekend, though. We got a weekend off.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah, I'm not like, let's make it happen. I think it's pretty safe to say Max gets the crown.
Yeah. I mean, he could skip the race, and I think he still gets the crown there.
Skip the sprint. He gets it on the race.
Yeah. So, yeah, the
He's going to go up for
be-
everything, though, now.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
He just wants to win still. Any bold predictions there? I think we will get Lawson still, right? In Qatar, they said.
I think so. That seems likely.
So that's cool. One more chance to show yourself, but you did well.
Yeah,
Anything
hopefully
you
Scott's-
look particularly forward to? Alpines fighting each other there. We're going to take a more deep dive into the circuit next week, though. But
Yeah, maybe the Alpines fighting. I'd hope that Lawson can, if this is going to be his final race of the season, hopefully he can score some points. That's what I'd like to see. Other than that, I'd just like to see some good fighting on track. So, yeah, I'm not going to make any predictions other than that because we'll cover that next week.
exactly. James, any closing thoughts?
No.
All right. See you next week, my friend.
Yeah, see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.